Every time you speak, you open a door that can never be fully closed. Your fears, your desires, your insecurities, each slips through your lips like smoke from a fire you cannot control. You may think your words make you powerful, but in truth they make you visible. And in a world where visibility invites attack, to be seen is to be vulnerable. Niccolo Machiavelli didn't admire the charming speaker or the charismatic storyteller. He respected the strategist who could rule a room without saying a word. Because silence, when used with precision, is not emptiness. It is power withheld like a sword that remains in its sheath, sharp and waiting. In a society addicted to noise, to validation, to constant expression, the rare man who holds his tongue becomes a mystery, and mystery, my friend, is feared far more than any speech. People chase likes and followers, they speak to be heard, but the one who controls himself controls the narrative. Machiavelli understood what most people still haven't learned: the loudest voice is rarely the one in charge. True power doesn't scream, it watches, it waits, and when it speaks, it ends conversations. Today, you're going to learn the brutal art of knowing when to speak, and more importantly, when to stay silent. Because in these 9 situations, opening your mouth doesn't make you strong. It makes you predictable. And in a world that preys on the predictable, silence is survival. There is no emotion more dangerous to your power than anger. Not because anger is weakness, but because anger, uncontrolled, is loud. And the loud man is always the first man to fall. Every time you explode in rage, you hand your enemy a blueprint of your soul. They see what triggers you. They learn what controls you. And worst of all, they realize that you can be moved, shaped, and manipulated by something as simple as a few harsh words. This is why the weak yell. This is why the powerless break things. And this is why the Machiavellian mind smiles while the rest of the world screams. Machiavelli never said to suppress your anger. He said to master it. Rage, when used strategically, is fuel. But when it's uncontained, it's wildfire burning not your enemies but yourself. The dangerous man is not the one who shouts in the heat of battle. He is the one who absorbs insult, betrayal, humiliation, and responds with silence, not because he is weak, but because he is calculating. While others rage blindly, he is sharpening his blade in the shadows. When anger strikes, your silence does 2 things. First, it gives you clarity. The fog of emotion lifts when you choose not to react, and suddenly, the battlefield becomes visible. You see the manipulations, the setups, the traps that you would have missed if you had reacted in the heat of the moment. Second, silence gives you control. Control over the moment, control over your reputation, and most importantly, control over your next move. Because while the world expects an explosion, you give them a void, an emptiness, a terrifying absence of reaction, and that absence makes them fear what comes next. The enemy who insults you expects retaliation. They want you to lower yourself to their level, to reveal your weapons, to exhaust yourself emotionally. Instead, meet their attack with nothing but stillness. Look them in the eye, let the insult hang in the air, and say nothing. In that moment, they will feel the power shift. You are no longer reacting to their game. You are forcing them to wonder what game you are playing. Machiavelli would tell you this: never settle conflict with emotion. Settle it with precision. Words shouted in anger can be answered. Actions taken in silence cannot. So the next time your blood boils and your fists clench, do not open your mouth. Open your eyes. Because in that silence you are building a weapon far deadlier than any insult: the power of the unknown. And it is fear of the unknown that controls men's hearts more than anything else. Winning is dangerous. Not because success itself is harmful, but because it awakens enemies you never knew you had. When you succeed, something dark stirs in the hearts of others: envy. It is the silent jealousy of those who could not, would not, or dared not accomplish what you did. And the moment you open your mouth to boast, you give that jealousy a target. You put a flashing light on your back. You tell the world where to aim. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He warned that visibility invites sabotage. When you loudly proclaim your victories, you awaken sleeping rivals. You trigger the insecurities of mediocre minds. People who would have never noticed your quiet rise suddenly sharpen their knives. They plot against you not because you wronged them, but because your success reminds them of their failure. Why feed their hatred with your words? Why give them a map to your empire when they could be wandering in the dark? True power is quiet. It is built in the shadows where no one can see the foundations being laid. The wise man lets his results speak, not his mouth. Because when you remain silent in victory, three powerful things happen. First, you protect yourself. No one can destroy what they cannot define. Your silence keeps your next moves hidden. Your resources concealed, your vulnerabilities unknown. Second, you amplify your mystique. People start to whisper, to wonder, how did he do it? What's his secret? And in that uncertainty, your legend grows. Finally, silence keeps you hungry. Bragging makes people lazy. It feeds the ego and blinds the mind. But silence keeps you sharp focused on the next battle instead of basking in the last win. And remember this, every time you speak of your triumphs, you risk freezing in place. The loud winners stop evolving. They drown in applause and forget that success is temporary. But the quiet victor keeps moving forward while others are still clapping for yesterday. If someone challenges your success publicly, do not argue. Do not explain. You owe the world no justification. Your silence says it all. You are not my competition. Let them guess your next move while you are already 10 steps ahead. And when you strike again, do it so silently, so powerfully, that they don't realize they lost until the dust settles. In the end, silence in victory is not humility, it is strategy. A fortress without walls, defended not by words but by mystery. Let them underestimate you. Let them believe you've peaked. Then crush them quietly with your next move and say nothing while they drown in confusion. Betrayal is not an accident, it is a choice. And the moment someone chooses to betray you, they have already calculated the risk of losing you. That's why chasing answers, demanding apologies, or begging for explanations only makes you look powerless. The damage has been done. The trust is gone. Words will not fix what actions have destroyed. This is where most people fall. They explode with anger. They cry for closure. They waste their energy trying to understand why. But Machiavelli would laugh at this weakness. He knew when someone stabs you in the back, your words cannot heal the wound, but your silence can weaponize it. The most terrifying response to betrayal is no response at all. Because when you go silent, you deny the traitor their moment of glory. Betrayal feeds on your reaction. It feeds on your pain, your anger, your desire to be heard. But when you give them nothing, no anger, no tears, no explanation, you leave them stranded in their own guilt and confusion. Your silence becomes a mirror, forcing them to face their actions without distraction. They will replay their betrayal over and over in their minds, wondering if you're planning revenge or if you simply stopped caring. That uncertainty is far more destructive than any confrontation. Silence in betrayal does three powerful things. First, it strips the betrayer of importance. A confrontation gives them the spotlight. Silence makes them irrelevant. It says, "You were not worth my energy." Second, it triggers their guilt. Words can be debated. Silence echoes in the mind. It haunts them because it leaves questions unanswered. Third, it keeps you in control. When you speak, you reveal your strategy. When you stay silent, they have no idea if you're walking away forever or quietly plotting their downfall. And here's the most brutal truth: you don't owe anyone closure. Closure is a myth sold by people who can't bear the pain of an unfinished ending. Machiavelli knew that power belongs to the one who leaves first without explanation, without regret. Because the person who disappears first leaves the other drowning in questions they'll never answer. So the next time someone betrays you, don't scream, don't beg, don't explain. Just vanish. Remove your energy, your presence, your access. Leave them alone with their choices and the silence that follows. That silence will be louder, colder, and more unforgettable than any words you could ever speak. Let absence become your final message. And in that emptiness, they will feel the full weight of what they lost and what they will never get back. In every room filled with voices, there is one voice that controls them all, the one that isn't speaking. Most people enter a group and immediately try to prove themselves. They talk fast, they share too much, they seek validation through noise. But what they don't realize is that every word they speak exposes their hand, their fears, their ambitions, their alliances, their insecurities. It's all laid bare for anyone sharp enough to listen. And the person who sits in silence watching, collecting, calculating, that is the person who truly holds the power. Machiavelli understood that in politics, war, and social life, information is more valuable than charisma. The man who listens knows who is lying, who is weak, who is desperate for approval. He sees who interrupts to gain attention, who flatters to earn favor, and who stays silent out of fear, not strategy. While the rest of the room burns itself out in a race to be heard, the silent man is already playing the long game. He doesn't need to speak because he's already won the most important battle, the battle for perception. Silence in a crowd does three critical things. First, it controls your image. The less you say, the less people can pin you down. Are you friendly? Are you dangerous? Are you uninterested or calculating? They don't know, and that uncertainty makes them cautious. Second, it protects your leverage. When others don't know where you stand, they can't predict your next move. You remain flexible, unreadable, and hard to manipulate. Third, it creates tension. People fear what they don't understand. And in a room full of noise, the one who speaks the least forces others to fill the silence with nervous over-explanations and guesses. When you finally do speak, your words cut through the noise like a blade through fog. They carry weight because they are rare. People listen not because you're loud, but because your silence made them wonder what you were thinking all along. And that mystery, carefully maintained, becomes your power. Machiavelli would tell you, this: let others burn themselves out trying to be heard. Let them expose their minds while you protect yours. Don't compete for attention. Study the room. Watch the battlefield before you strike. And when you finally speak, say little but say what matters. Because the man who holds back his words holds the room. And in a world where everyone is screaming to be noticed, the quiet observer becomes the one they can't stop watching. Public humiliation is one of the oldest strategies of social control. Since ancient times, crowds have gathered not to witness truth, but to witness someone fall. Today, nothing has changed. Whether it's in a corporate boardroom, a family dinner, or on social media, people still attack others publicly, not to destroy their arguments, but to destroy their image. They want you to react, to defend yourself, to lower yourself to their level. And the moment you do, they win. Because now you're no longer the quiet, composed figure they feared. You're just another person arguing to be understood. Machiavelli would warn you, public insults are never about truth, they are about control. The attacker doesn't care if what they say is right. They care that they've forced you to play their game. And the second you try to explain, justify, or retaliate, you give them relevance. They become your equal. But power isn't about winning debates. Power is about refusing to enter them in the first place. When you are insulted publicly, silence is not weakness. Silence is command. Because in that silence you create an unbearable tension. The crowd stops watching the attacker and starts watching you. They wonder, why isn't he saying anything? What is he thinking? What will he do? This uncertainty flips the power dynamic. The more your enemy speaks, the more desperate they appear. The more you stay still, the more composed and superior you become. Your silence also protects your dignity. Kings do not argue with jesters. Lions do not roar at barking dogs. They observe, perhaps smile faintly, and let their stature speak for itself. You are not lowering yourself into the mud. You are letting the room decide who holds real power, and the room always respects the one who doesn't need to prove it. The greatest trap in public confrontation is emotional reaction. The attacker wants your anger because it makes you predictable. But your silence turns the whole situation into a mirror. They see their desperation reflected back at them. And while they burn themselves out seeking attention, you conserve your energy waiting for the right moment to act, not with words, but with results. So the next time someone tries to humiliate you in public, do not play their game. Do not defend your name. Stand tall, stay silent, and let the emptiness of your reactions suffocate their ego. Because in the end, the one who says less holds more, and the man who doesn't respond is the man they cannot defeat. There is a unique power in knowing the truth and saying nothing. Most people, when they uncover a lie or deception, feel an overwhelming urge to expose it immediately. They want to confront, correct, and claim victory. But Machiavelli would tell you this truth is not a toy for your emotions. It is a weapon, and a weapon is useless if it's fired at the wrong time. The moment you expose what you know, you give your enemy clarity. You remove the fog of uncertainty that keeps them vulnerable. And worst of all, you reveal your awareness, forcing them to adjust, defend, and hide. Silence, when you know the truth, does three critical things. First, it keeps you in control. When you don't reveal your knowledge, you hold the element of surprise. You choose when and how the truth comes to light on your terms, not theirs. Second, it increases their mistakes. Believing you are blind, your enemy grows careless. They lie again, build bigger traps, and expose more of their intentions. Third, your silence turns their arrogance against them. Nothing destroys a deceiver faster than their own overconfidence, and every moment they believe they're safe is a moment they dig their grave deeper. Machiavelli warned, never interrupt an enemy when they are making a mistake. Your ego may scream for you to correct them now, but wisdom whispers, wait, because timing is what makes truth devastating. Expose it too early and it's just an argument. Expose it too late and the damage may be irreversible. But reveal it when your enemy has built their castle on a foundation of lies and your truth becomes an earthquake that leaves nothing standing. And perhaps most importantly, silence protects your leverage. When people don't know what you know, they underestimate you. They speak freely in your presence, believing you are oblivious. They relax, reveal their alliances, and leave cracks in their armor. You meanwhile watch, memorize, and prepare. So the next time you uncover the truth, resist the urge to shout it from the rooftops. Let them lie. Let them smile. Let them think they are in control. Because when the moment comes, your silence will break with a single precise strike, and by then it won't be a conversation. It will be their collapse. Victory belongs not to the one who knows first, but to the one who strikes last when it matters most. Powerful people are not impressed by noise. They are not swayed by flattery, nor do they respect those who try too hard to gain their approval. Yet this is where most people fail. The moment they stand before a CEO, a political leader, a cultural icon, or anyone with status and influence, they start performing. Their words tumble out fast, anxious, eager, desperate to prove their worth. But what they don't realize is that the more they talk, the smaller they appear. Not because they lack ability, but because they've revealed something fatal, the need to be seen. Machiavelli would warn you, never show your hunger for approval, because the powerful smell desperation the way wolves smell fear. They may smile, they may nod politely, but inside they are already dismissing you. To them, true strength is not in the man who tries to prove his worth, it is in the man who already knows it. And that man, the man who holds himself with quiet composure, who speaks only when necessary, becomes an enigma in their eyes. Silence in the presence of power achieves three things. First, it shows discipline. When you don't rush to speak, it signals that you are not emotionally reactive, that you are in control of yourself. Second, it creates intrigue. Powerful people will start to wonder, why are you so calm? What do you know that others don't? What gives you the confidence to sit quietly in a room full of performers? Third, it flips the dynamic. Instead of seeking their approval, you appear to be evaluating them. And that reversal is where real influence begins. Silence is not submission. It is armor. You are not hiding from power. You are measuring it, calculating your position, and waiting for your moment. In fact, the more silent you remain, the more power begins to gravitate toward you. Because in a world where most beg for recognition, the man who doesn't ask to be seen becomes the one they cannot ignore. When you do speak in the presence of power, your words should be clear, sharp, and purposeful. Speak less than expected, but make each word count. Let your composure speak louder than your voice. Machiavelli knew this. Too much familiarity kills respect. Too much honesty reveals your hand. But restraint, mystery, and silence, these create fear, respect, and curiosity. So next time you sit across from someone more powerful, resist the urge to perform. Let your quiet presence fill the space, because the man who holds his silence holds his worth and leaves the powerful wondering whether they are speaking to a friend or a future threat. In a world obsessed with watching others, the most powerful thing you can do is give them nothing to see. Whether it's your enemies waiting for your mistakes, your rivals studying your next move, or the world scanning your every word on social media, the modern battlefield is observation. But here's the truth. Machiavelli understood long before the digital age, what is most visible is most vulnerable. The watched man who reacts, explains, and clarifies gives his observers a map to his weaknesses. But the one who stays still, who speaks little and reveals less, becomes a ghost, present yet untouchable. Silence under surveillance serves three deadly purposes. First, it creates paranoia. When people watch you and see nothing, they begin to imagine everything. Are you planning something bigger? Are you hiding your next move? Are you unaffected or preparing to strike? Their uncertainty becomes your shield. Second, silence protects your strategy. Every step you reveal is a step they can prepare for. But when you reveal nothing, every move becomes a surprise attack. Third, it builds mystique. People fear what they do not understand. And when they cannot figure you out, they project their fears onto you, imagining you far stronger than you may actually be. In today's world, people overshare out of anxiety. They feel they must explain themselves, justify their choices, and perform for an invisible audience. But Machiavellian power is built in the opposite direction. The less they know, the less they can control. When you stay silent under observation, you become unreadable. You starve your watchers of answers. And in that hunger, they start exposing themselves, trying to pull a reaction from you, making reckless moves just to provoke a response. Your silence frustrates them. They will poke, prod, insult, and question, hoping to shake your stillness. But you give them nothing. And in that nothingness, your real power grows. Because the man who watches quietly builds leverage, while the man who reacts publicly gives it away. So when you know you are being watched, do less. Say less. Smile faintly, but reveal nothing. Be a shadow that cannot be caught. Because in the end, the most dangerous figure in the room is not the one making noise. It's the one who watches quietly, who holds his next move like a sword in the dark, waiting for the perfect time to strike. There is one mistake almost everyone makes when they feel momentum in their life. They start talking about it. They share their goals, their plans, their next big moves, thinking it will inspire others or earn their support. But in truth, every time you reveal your future, you weaken it. Because when your plans are exposed, they become targets. People who hear them, whether out of jealousy, fear, or self-interest, begin to position themselves against you. Some will doubt you, casting shadows of insecurity over your path. Others will try to steal your ideas, beating you to the finish line. And a few will work quietly to block you, sabotage you before you ever arrive. Machiavelli knew this well. He never spoke of his next step. He understood that predictability is death in a world of rivals. When they know where you're going, they can wait for you there. But when you move in silence, your actions are invisible until it's too late to stop them. Silence about your future is not secrecy out of fear. It is protection out of wisdom. It is guarding your momentum while it is still fragile, like shielding a flame from the wind before it becomes a wildfire. When people ask what you're working on, give them fog, not clarity. Smile and say, "I've got a few things in motion." Let them guess. Let them speculate. But never let them confirm. Because silence about your next move gives you three vital advantages. First, it keeps your freedom intact. If no one knows your plan, you can change direction anytime without apology, without permission. Second, it protects your vision from sabotage. The fewer who know, the fewer who can interfere. Third, it creates unpredictability, and unpredictable people are impossible to control. Some will say you owe others transparency, but ask yourself who truly benefits from your openness: those who want to help you, or those waiting to use your ambition against you. Until your results are undeniable, keep your path hidden. Build in the dark, reveal in the light. And when your success is visible, let them realize too late what you've built right under their watchful eyes. In the end, the man who talks about his future invites resistance, but the man who acts in silence arrives before anyone knew he was coming. Your next move should not be a conversation. It should be an ambush, and by the time they ask what you're building, it should already be done. In a world that worships constant noise, silence feels unnatural. You are taught from childhood to speak your truth, to defend your name, to respond when attacked. But Machiavelli understood something deeper, something few today grasp. The loudest voice is not the most powerful. The loudest voice is the easiest to challenge, the easiest to predict, and the easiest to destroy. True power does not need to explain itself. It doesn't argue. It doesn't beg for understanding. It simply exists beyond reach, beyond provocation. Silence is not passivity. It is not weakness. Silence is restraint, and restraint is power in its purest form. The man who can stay silent when insulted holds his position. He doesn't descend into petty arguments. He rises above them. The man who stays silent when angry is dangerous, not because he feels nothing, but because he feels everything, and still chooses his response with precision, not impulse. The man who stays silent when victorious shows the world that applause is not his oxygen. His oxygen is progress, not praise. Each of the 9 moments you've just walked through is a test of whether you will react emotionally like the masses or strategically like a master. And in each of those moments, silence is not absence of action. Silence is the concealment of it. While the world talks, tweets, shouts, and crumbles under the weight of its own noise, you observe. You wait. You write the ending while they're still lost in chapter 1. And when the time comes to speak, you don't speak to be heard. You speak to finish what others could only start. But the most important lesson is, this silence does not only protect you from enemies, it protects you from yourself, from your need to be understood, from your craving for validation, from your impulse to control every narrative. When you hold your words, you force yourself to face a deeper question. What am I truly seeking? Power is not found in the approval of others. It is found in the mastery of self. And mastery begins the moment you stop chasing reactions and start controlling them. So, the next time you are insulted, challenged, lied to, or praised, do nothing. Look them in the eye and let silence do what noise never could. Make them uncomfortable. Make them question. Make them fear what they cannot see. And in that space where your stillness meets their chaos, you will find the rarest kind of power, the kind no one can take from you because they never saw it coming. In a world addicted to attention, your silence becomes your most powerful statement. Every day we are pressured to explain ourselves, to defend our opinions, to prove our worth in conversations, meetings, or social media posts. But the truth is not every battle is worth your words. Sometimes the strongest move is restraint. Machiavelli taught us that silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. When you don't react to insults, when you don't announce your victories, and when you keep your next move hidden, you protect your peace and your power. Think about it. How often have you spoken in anger and regretted it? How many times has sharing your plans invited jealousy or sabotage? How often have you tried to defend your reputation only to make your critics stronger by giving them your energy? The lesson is simple but hard to live. Not everything requires your voice. Silence gives you time to think, space to observe, and leverage to act when the moment is right. In your personal life, this means pausing before reacting in arguments. In your career, it means letting your results speak louder than your ambitions. And in your social circles, it means holding back from trying to impress or explain yourself to people who aren't truly listening. When you master the art of silence, you stop living in reaction and start living in command. If this message spoke to you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs the reminder that silence used wisely is strength. Hit subscribe, like, and share this video to help others break free from the noise and reclaim their power. Because in the end, it's not about saying the most, it's about knowing when to say nothing at all.